We are here today with the first episode in the Not Your Shield interviews. I am joined today by Emma. Emma, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yo, I'm Emma, otherwise known as VVCool995 on Twitter.
And Emma, how did you first get involved in Gamergate? What was it that sparked your interest in this matter? What was it that got you involved? What was it that made you feel like this is an issue I feel I need to express myself on?
I saw some of the Not Your Shield pictures and I went on Twitter, which I never really used much before except to occasionally burst my opinions on, and I started tweeting to the Gamergate hashtag and a bunch of people said, hey, we like what you're saying, and I was like, oh, cool, and then I started talking to these people and got really involved.
What would you say is the most important issue to you in all of the Gamergate controversy?
I really think that corruption in journalism as a whole is a really big issue in general. So, and I think that just starting perhaps with gaming journalism, and then it could possibly move on to helping journalism become better in all aspects.
Does that mean you believe that Gamergate has been unfairly portrayed in media?
I would say so, yeah.
Now, most of the conversation in media has been focused on issues of inclusivity and representation for women in video games. Often what you hear when you do a Google search for Gamergate and check out the different articles that are put out by MSNBC, New York Times, etc., they will almost always say that Gamergate is a backlash against the growing number of women who take an interest in video games. What would you say to that? Is that an unfair way of presenting the issue?
Oh, definitely. Like, I'm a female in gaming. I have been since longer than I can actually even remember. I know tons of women in gaming. I don't think it's as big as an issue as people are assuming it is. This isn't elementary school anymore. I think that, yeah, it's definitely unfair and not correct representation of the Gamergate issue, and it's definitely not a backlash. There are tons of women in Gamergate.
So you have never felt in all of your video game playing career that you have been unfairly maligned simply for being a woman?
No, not at all.
Now, would it be a selling point for you if a video game featured a female main character? Would that be something that would attract you towards a video game, or would you look at other features instead, such as gameplay? If it is an MMO, would you be considering buying it if it had a subscription fee, or if it was free to play, for example? Or would you be looking at the box art and seeing characters there that you felt that you could identify with? What would be the main draw for you?
That's hard. The main draw of a video game for me usually is the story. If I hear that it has a really interesting story, that is what mainly draws me. I've always been a big RPG player. Sometimes a female character might interest me because when I was little, I did like to try and play female characters, but it's not like, it never was super important. I think the story always mattered more, and definitely the box art is something interesting and attractive. And as for free-to-play MMOs or versus subscription, I definitely usually can't afford a subscription, and free-to-play definitely usually has some issues, so I don't play MMOs too often.
It seems to me a commonly recurring concern among gamers that video games are priced very dearly, and they often feel that they are being cheated out of a complete experience when they buy a game for full price and then find out only later that sections of the game are portioned off for downloadable content. Is this something that you feel strongly about? That you feel is taking video games in a negative direction? Or do you think it is a necessary evil that comes as a result of piracy and simply increased production costs for video games?
I think that it probably is not really fair. It does seem like a little slimy to me. Although, in fairness, I don't often get to buy games at full price because of money issues. So it's not a problem that I have experienced myself too often. I feel like I can't really comment on that properly.
Before Gamergate, did you frequent any of the major gaming news outlets that have been implicated in this controversy?
I occasionally checked out a Kotaku article once in a while. I really did enjoy Gama Sutra long ages ago, years ago. I hadn't been on it in years. I didn't super frequent because, once again, I don't often buy games right at the moment they're released.
Being as one of the major revelations of Gamergate has been the very widespread use of affiliate links and sponsored content on websites such as Kotaku, Polygon, Gamasutra. Is this something that makes you look back at the perceptions that you got of games through these websites? And has it made you reconsider some of your previously held presuppositions?
If I frequented the sites a bit more, perhaps, but I mean, technically no, but I do think that just because the games that were sponsored never interested me in the first place, but I think that it is strange and it does make me kind of look at both the sponsored series and the sites a little with a bit of a wary eye.
All right, understood. And did it personally affect you when the Gamers Are Dead articles hit on August 28th? Is that something that hit close to home for you, or did you simply brush it off as whatever, it's just Kotaku being weird again?
It was shocking. I mean, I try not to take things like that too personally, but it's strange if a bunch of gaming journalistic sites post an article saying, hey, our entire audience, we hate you, you're messed up. That just didn't sit right. That doesn't seem like, I don't know, that's not something that should be said by those people, in my opinion, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's not exactly consumer advocacy now, is it?
Definitely not.
Right. With the revelation of Game Journal Pros, the mailing list where several of these major outlets colluded with each other in shaping stories and blacklisting members of the video game developer community, as well as journalists, writers who stepped out of line. Would you disagree with Kyle Orland, the founder of Game Journal Pro's stance that these things were benign, that it was simply a space where journalists and writers could talk among each other about how to handle issues such as, do we report on someone's personal life or not? Do you feel that he is correct in his assessment, that it was simply a watering hole where people talk to each other? Or do you feel that he is being dishonest with these readers and that he's really trying to hide up and that the things they discussed there were a lot more serious than what he's letting on?
Yeah, I have to think that, I mean, the idea of a watering hole, or as you said, is benign in itself, but the things that were discussed in the Game Journal Pros is not, it's definitely dishonest. It's a little slimy. Yeah, I think such, for example, the blacklisting, the creating stories to sync up. I mean, theoretically, these sites should be rivals. So it's a little weird.
Now, one of the major talking points of these websites, of course, were involved in the Games Dead articles and the Game Journal Pros list. One of their main talking points has pretty much always been that people who play games, hardcore gamers especially, are just angry cis white males who are pissed off about women. What would you say to them if you had a chance to sit down with them and talk?
Well, one of the things I'd say is just look at me. I'm definitely not well, at least a male. I am white and cis, so I can't say the full thing, I suppose. Look at all of the transgender people who are in Gamergate and Not Your Shield. We exist. That's not something you can continue to pretend that we don't exist. That was a badly formed sentence, but
One very common accusation levied against Gamergate is that supporters of Gamergate are transphobic. This is particularly a common accusation you see levied on Twitter against supporters of Gamergate, such as Milo Yiannopoulos, who has, when questioned, issued rather controversial statements about his views on transgender people. Do you think it is fair to describe Gamergate supporters in general as being transphobic?
definitely not Gamergate supporters in general. With such a huge movement, I suppose, with people like Milo, I don't really I disagree with Milo's views on transgender people. Um, I but and also I've met like some of the my favorite people that I've met through Gamergate are transgender, and they're great people. And so they're certainly not transphobic. We've always been a group that we don't want our opinions to always match on everything else but journalistic ethics. We're a diverse group of people, and there's going to be differing opinions on a lot of things.
That's a sort of agree to disagree attitude you hold, then. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's when I'm talking about Gamergate, it's not about transgender people. I'm not, and I'm certainly not the type of person to go and pick a fight with Milo or anyone else about my opinions on transgender people. It's not, it's not an important subject to Gamergate, I think, aside from the fact that we are inclusive of everybody.
Speaking of Milo Yiannopoulos, he writes, of course, for Breitbart, a very well-known right-wing publication, and specifically the affiliation of Gamergate to right-wing news sources has become part of a major talking point again among the Game Journal Pros affiliated outlets that have spoken out against Gamergate. As I say, they very often describe Gamergate as a right-wing movement. Is that something that you see? Do you see personal politics play any role in Gamergate at all?
I do occasionally see some people insert personal politics into it, but it's definitely not a right or left wing movement. I've seen plenty of right wing people. I myself am more left wing, and most of the people I tend to talk to are are quite left wing. And at the same time, I've seen that same thing from the other side. I think people sometimes will try to put some of the politics in, but it really doesn't hold much ground in the Gamergate discussion.
Do you frequent the Kotaku in Action subreddit or 8chan, the Gamergate border, or do you simply focus your activity on Twitter? Where are you active in this?
I'm mostly on Twitter. I do follow the Kotaku in Action subreddit. I don't go to the subreddit and scroll down and see what's there. I just it shows up on my main dashboard, I guess, on it. Sometimes I will go to the 8chan Gamergate board and just see what's there. I don't do that too often.
Now, recently there has been accusations that Gamergate supports child pornography because of the links that Gamergate has to 8chan and 8chan's very, very principled stance regarding freedom of speech. That is to say, pictures of minors are allowed there, so long as they do not break the law. Is this something that you think is a problem for Gamergate? Is it something that Gamergate should speak out about? Or is it again an accusation that simply doesn't hold weight?
It's definitely an accusation that doesn't hold weight. 8chan's policy on child pornography is pretty much almost the exact same as 4chan, and 4chan's owner is very anti-Gamergate, as has been revealed. And so the boards that any accusations of child pornography had nothing to do with the Gamergate board or the rest of Gamergate. It's simply 8chan's. It's simply other boards created by other people on 8chan.
So in your view, the link is tenuous at best?
Yes.
You mentioned earlier that you like RPGs. Have there been any RPGs this year that you've really enjoyed?
I've always been a fan of the Final Fantasy series. Oh, whoops. I didn't play that recently. Shoot. I'm sorry. I'm so bad with timelines for these things. Racketeer, I believe, counts as an RPG. I've been playing a lot of that recently. That has been a great deal of fun for me.
One very, very common sentiment I see among opponents of Gamergate is that the people who post to the notyourshield hashtag are, in essence, acting as a shield for Gamergate. What would your response to them be?
To people who say that Not Your Shield participants are acting as a shield for Gamergate, that even more makes us feel like you are trying to silence our opinions instead of give us a voice, which you claim to be attempting to do. That just because we agree with Gamergate means that we can't possibly be our own free-thinking individuals. We are acting as their shield.
What would you say to followers of Gamergate if you manage to get all of their attention at one time? Is there something that you would want them to focus on and dedicate more effort towards?
Definitely towards the journalistic ethics, the sites, to focus much less on SJWs and the things they say.
All right, thank you. That's a wrap. I'd like to thank you for taking your time to be part of the Not Your Shield interviews.
No problem. Thank you.